The Harmony drifted silently through the void between star systems, her hull gleaming like a silver needle against the cosmic darkness. Dr. Adrian Vale pressed his palm against the cool observation deck window, watching distant galaxies spiral in their eternal dance. 3 months into the diplomatic mission, and he still felt the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. Dr. Vale. The voice behind him was crisp, professional. The Sayalari delegation has arrived. Adrian turned to face Lieutenant Torres, whose expression was carefully neutral. Everyone knew this meeting could determine the future of human-Sayalari relations. How many in their party? 5. Their commander specifically requested to work with our xenolinguist. Torres paused. That would be you, sir. Adrian straightened his uniform jacket and followed Torres through the ship's corridors. The Harmony was designed for diplomatic missions. Wide hallways, neutral colors, nothing that might seem aggressive to alien sensibilities. They'd learned that lesson the hard way with the Corvin incident 2 years ago. The docking bay doors hissed open, revealing 5 figures in elegant flowing robes that seemed to shimmer between silver and deep purple. The Sayalari were humanoid but distinctly alien, tall, graceful, with an otherworldly beauty that made Adrian catch his breath. Their leader stepped forward, and Adrian felt his world shift. She was stunning in a way that transcended species. Her skin was the soft blue of Earth's dawn sky, and her hair cascaded in waves of crimson that seemed to catch light that wasn't there. Her eyes were large, golden, and held an intelligence that made Adrian feel transparent. I am Commander Therea of the Sayalari Diplomatic Corps, she said, her voice carrying musical undertones that human vocal cords couldn't replicate. You are the linguist, Dr. Adrian Vale. He stepped forward instinctively, extending his hand in the universal human gesture of greeting. The reaction was immediate and startling. All 5 Sayalari took a sharp step backward, and Therea's golden eyes widened in what could only be alarm. Her hands remained rigidly at her sides, hidden within the folds of her robes. Forgive me, Adrian said quickly, lowering his hand. I didn't mean to offend. Therea's expression softened slightly, though she maintained her distance. You could not have known. Physical contact is complicated for my people. We do not touch as humans do. Not at all? The question escaped before Adrian could stop. Himself. Touch is reserved for the most sacred of ceremonies. When Sayalari bond for life, there is one moment of contact, palm to palm, hearts aligned. After that, she trailed off, her golden gaze meeting his. After that, touch becomes unnecessary. Adrian found himself studying her face, noting the way her lips pressed together when she spoke of bonding, the slight tension in her shoulders. But you're curious about it. Human touch, I mean. A pause stretched between them, filled with the quiet hum of the ship's systems. I am here to facilitate communication between our species, Dr. Vale. Understanding your customs is merely practical. But there was something in her voice, a note that suggested practicality wasn't the whole truth. Commander, Adrian said carefully, perhaps we should begin with language protocols. I've prepared a workspace in the linguistics lab, separate stations, of course. We can maintain appropriate distance while we work. Therea nodded, but her eyes lingered on his hands. Distance, she repeated as if testing the word. Yes, that would be wise. As they walked toward the lab, Adrian noticed how she moved. Fluid, almost floating, but with a strange rigidity that spoke of constant self-control. He found himself wondering what it would be like to live in a world where touch was forbidden, where the simple comfort of human contact was denied. Behind them, the other Sayalari followed in perfect formation, their robes whispering against the deck plates like secrets being shared in an ancient language. The linguistics lab was spacious, with 2 workstations positioned across the room from each other. Adrian gestured to the station he'd prepared for her, a holographic interface that could be operated without physical contact, everything positioned to maintain the distance her culture required. Will this work for you, Commander? Therea approached, her station with graceful steps, her fingers hovering just above the holographic controls. "Adequate," she said, though her gaze drifted across the room to where Adrian stood. "Dr. Vale?" "Yes?" "When you extended your hand earlier, what did you expect to happen?" The question caught him off guard. "It's called a handshake. We grasp hands briefly as a greeting, a sign of respect and peaceful intention." "Grasp," she repeated, her voice barely above a whisper. "And this brings you comfort?" "Among other things, yes." Tharea was quiet for so long that Adrian wondered if he'd said something wrong. When she finally spoke, her voice carried a note of longing that made his chest tighten. "How curious," she said, her golden eyes meeting his across the safe distance between them. "How very curious indeed." 3 weeks had passed since the Sailari delegation arrived aboard the Harmony, and Adrian had fallen into a routine that both thrilled and tormented him. Every morning, he would arrive at the linguistics lab to find Commander Tharea already there, her crimson hair catching the artificial light as she studied holographic displays of human neural patterns. "Good morning, Commander," he said, settling at his workstation across the room. "Dr. Vale." She turned toward him, and he caught that familiar flicker in her golden eyes. Curiosity barely contained beneath diplomatic composure. "I have been analyzing the brain scans you provided. Human neural activity during emotional responses is fascinating." Over the past weeks, Adrian had allowed himself to be subjected to various tests. Brain scans while he laughed at comedy vids, while he listened to music, while he interacted with crewmates, all in the name of helping Tharea understand human emotional expression. "What have you discovered?" he asked, pulling up his own data streams. Tharea moved closer to her display, her long fingers dancing just above the holographic controls. "When humans make physical contact, even something as simple as a handshake, your brain releases multiple neurochemicals. Oxytocin, dopamine, serotonin. It creates a cascade of pleasure." The way she said the word pleasure made Adrian's pulse quicken. "That's right, touch is fundamental to human bonding. But why?" She turned to face him fully, and Adrian noticed she'd moved a step closer to the center of the room, still maintaining distance, but less than before. "My people bond through mental connection, through shared thought and purpose. Physical contact seems inefficient." Adrian stood, drawn by something in her voice. "It's not about efficiency. It's about connection on a deeper level. When I shake someone's hand, I'm saying, I trust you. I'm not a threat. We share this moment." "Show me," Tharea said suddenly. "I'm sorry?" "Show me the neural patterns. Touch something, anything, and let me observe the readings." Adrian glanced around the lab and picked up a smooth metal stylus from his desk. "Like this?" "No." Her voice was softer now, almost breathless. "Touch something living. Touch another person." Their eyes met across the room, and Adrian felt the air between them charge with electricity. "Commander, there's no one else here." "I know," she whispered. Before either could reconsider, the lab door chimed. Lieutenant Torres entered, carrying a datapad and wearing a grim expression. "Dr. Vale, I'm sorry to interrupt, but we've received word from Earth Command." Torres paused, noting the tension in the room. "It's about Petty Officer Jenkins." Adrian's stomach dropped. Jenkins had been part of a survey mission to a nearby asteroid field. They'd lost contact 3 days ago. "What happened?" Adrian asked, though he already knew from Torres's expression. "His shuttle was found drifting. Hull breach. He didn't make it, sir." The datapad slipped from Adrian's suddenly numb fingers, clattering, to the floor. Jenkins had been young, barely 25, with a girlfriend back on Earth and dreams of exploring the galaxy. Now he was gone, another casualty of humanity's reach into the void. Adrian sank into his chair, grief hitting him like a physical blow. He'd recommended Jenkins for the mission. The kid had been eager, competent, and now he was dead because Adrian had signed off on the assignment. "Sir?" Torres's voice seemed to come from very far away. "Are you all right?" Adrian nodded mechanically, not trusting his voice. After Torres left, he sat staring at the scattered data streams, Jenkins's face floating in his memory. The lab was silent except for the gentle hum of electronics and his own ragged breathing. Then he heard movement, the whisper of robes against metal flooring. He looked up to see Therea standing in the center of the room, closer than she'd ever been before. Her golden eyes were wide with something he'd never seen there before. Concern. Dr. Vale? She said softly. Adrian. It was the first time she'd used his given name, and it broke something inside him. The tears came then, hot and unexpected, grief for a young man who would never see Earth again. Therea took another step forward, her hand rising as if to reach for him. Her fingers trembled in the air between them, and Adrian could see the war playing out across her face, instinct battling cultural programming. We are forbidden from contact, she whispered, her hand still extended toward him. But I wanted to understand your pain. Therea, he said, her name feeling strange and wonderful on his lips. I have been watching you for weeks, studying your responses to stimuli. But this is different. This pain you feel, it's not just neural patterns, is it? Adrian shook his head, unable to speak past the tightness in his throat. Tell me, she said, taking another small step closer. What does it feel like? Like a piece of me has been torn away, he managed. Like the universe is a little colder, a little emptier. Jenkins was a good man, and now he's gone, and I can't bring him back. Therea's hand wavered in the air, so close now that Adrian could feel the warmth radiating from her skin. And if I could offer comfort, what would that look like? A touch, Adrian said quietly. Just knowing someone else is there, that you're not alone in the darkness. For a long moment they remained frozen. Her hand extended, his eyes locked on hers. Then slowly, Therea lowered her hand back to her side. I cannot, she whispered, but there was agony in her voice. I'm sorry, Adrian. I cannot. But as she turned away, Adrian saw something in her golden eyes that hadn't been there before. Understanding. And perhaps, just perhaps, the first crack in the wall that separated their worlds. 2 days after Jenkins's memorial service, the questions began. Adrian was reviewing linguistic patterns when Therea's voice cut through the lab's quiet hum. Why do humans embrace after conflict? He looked up from his displays to find her watching, him with that intense curiosity that had become familiar over the past month. She stood at her usual station, but her posture was different, less rigid, more open. What do you mean? Yesterday, I observed Ensign Martinez and Lieutenant Hayes arguing about supply allocation. Their voices were raised, their faces showed anger. Then suddenly they embraced. Why? Adrian set down his stylus, considering. Sometimes we fight because we care deeply about something. The embrace afterward is a way of saying, we may disagree, but we're still on the same side. Therea was quiet for a long moment, her golden eyes thoughtful. Among my people, conflict is resolved through logical discourse. Physical demonstrations of reconciliation are unnecessary. But do you ever wonder what it would feel like? The question escaped before Adrian could stop himself. She paused, her fingers hovering over her workstation's controls. Is touch truly healing? Or is this merely what humans tell themselves? Both, I think. The healing is real. There's science behind it. But it's also about connection, about knowing you're not alone. Not alone, she repeated softly. What does longing feel like, Adrian? The directness of the question caught him off guard. Longing. I have been experiencing something I cannot categorize. When I observe human interactions, when I watch you interact with others, there is a sensation I cannot name. A desire for something I have never experienced. Adrian's heart began to race. Therea. Suddenly, the lab's lights flickered and died. Emergency lighting kicked in a second later, bathing everything in dim red. Then came the grinding sound of metal on metal, and the lab's main door slammed shut with a definitive clang. System. "Failure in Section 7, came the announcement over the intercom. "All personnel remain in position until further notice. Hull breach detected. Emergency containment protocols in effect." Adrian tried the door controls, but they were completely unresponsive. "We're locked in," he said, turning to find Tharea standing very still in the center of the room. "For how long?" she asked, her voice carefully controlled. "Could be hours. The good news is this lab has its own life support system." He checked the environmental readings on his emergency tablet. "The bad news is we're on backup power, which means limited oxygen recycling." They stood in the red-tinged darkness, the weight of confinement settling around them. The lab that had felt spacious before now seemed intimate, almost claustrophobic. "Adrian," Tharea said after several minutes of silence, "how long will the oxygen last?" He checked his readings again, his stomach tightening. 8 hours, maybe 10 if we stay calm and don't exert ourselves. "And if the repairs take longer?" He met her eyes in the dim light. "Let's hope they don't." As if summoned by his words, the ship shuddered violently. Tharea stumbled, and without thinking, Adrian reached out and caught her hand. The contact was electric. Her skin was warm, softer than he'd imagined, and he felt her pulse racing beneath his fingers. For a moment, they both froze, staring down at their joined hands. "You should not have touched me," she whispered, but she didn't pull away. "I'm sorry. I didn't think." "No." Her fingers tightened around his. "I mean, you should not have touched me because now I understand." "Understand what?" She looked up at him, her golden eyes reflecting the emergency lighting. "Why humans fight to save each other. Why you mourn your dead. Why touch matters." Her voice grew softer. "It's not just neurochemicals, is it? It's connection." Adrian's thumb brushed across her knuckles, and he felt her shiver. "Yes, I have been lying to myself," she continued, her voice barely audible. "Telling myself I was here for scientific purposes, for diplomatic relations. But I have been studying you, Adrian. Not humans. You, the way you move, the way you speak, the way your eyes change when you're thinking." The ship shuddered again, and instinctively, Adrian pulled her closer. She didn't resist, instead stepping into the space between them until they were mere inches apart. "This is forbidden," she breathed. "I know. If my people discover this, there will be consequences. I know. I have never been touched by another being. Never wanted to be touched." Adrian raised his free hand slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, he cupped her cheek, marveling at the warmth of her skin. "And now? Now I understand what longing means," she whispered. "It means wanting something you've never had. Something you've been taught is wrong, but knowing that without it you'll never be complete." Their faces were close now, close enough that he could feel her breath against his lips. The emergency lighting cast shadows across her features, making her seem ethereal, otherworldly. "Tharea," he said softly, "I don't want knowledge anymore," she whispered, her eyes closing as she leaned into his touch. "I want understanding, and I think that begins with you." "Are you sure?" In answer, she placed her free hand against his chest, over his heart. "Show me," she said. "Show me what it means to not be alone." The ship groaned around them, systems failing and alarms distant, but in that moment, all that existed was the warmth of her skin against his and the promise of something neither of them had dared to hope for. In the dim red glow of the emergency lighting, Adrian and Tharea remained frozen in their embrace, her hand pressed against his chest, his fingers tracing the elegant line of her jaw. The ship's systems hummed around them, but the universe had narrowed to this moment, this connection that transcended species and culture. "I can feel your heartbeat," Tharea whispered, wonder coloring her voice. "It's faster than normal human baseline." "That's what you do to me," Adrian admitted, his thumb brushing across her cheekbone. Her skin was impossibly soft, with a warmth that seemed to emanate from within. "Is this what humans call desire?" she asked, her golden eyes searching his face. This feeling as though I might dissolve if you stopped touching me. Among other things. Slowly, tentatively, Thérèse raised her other hand to mirror his gesture, her palm cupping his face. Her touch was reverent, exploratory, as if she were discovering fire for the first time. Your skin is rougher than mine, she observed, her fingers tracing the slight stubble along his jaw. But warm, so warm. Thérèse, he said softly. We don't have to. Yes, we do. Her voice was firm, resolved. I have spent my entire life following rules created by others, denying myself experiences because they were deemed unnecessary. But this, she pressed closer until they were sharing breath. This feels necessary, essential. Adrian's hands moved to her shoulders, marveling at the way she fit against him, as if they had been designed to complement each other. Your people will. My people believe touch diminishes us, makes us weak. Her hands slid down to rest against his chest. But I feel stronger now than I ever have before. How do you explain that? I can't, he admitted. Some things don't have explanations. The ship shuddered again, and the lights flickered. In the brief darkness, Adrian felt Therea's lips brush against his, tentative, questioning. When the lights returned, her eyes were wide with amazement. Was that a kiss? He confirmed, his voice rough. How did it feel? Like coming home to a place I've never been. She touched her lips with wondering fingers. Do it again. This time, when their lips met, there was nothing hesitant about it. Thérèse melted against him, her hands fisting in his uniform as she discovered the intoxicating pleasure of human intimacy. Adrian held her gently, aware that this was all new, to her, letting her set the pace. When they finally parted, both were breathing hard. No wonder my people fear this, Thérèse said, her forehead resting against his. I would abandon everything for more of it. You don't have to abandon anything, Adrian said, his hands stroking her crimson hair. We can find a way. Can we? The doubt in her voice made his chest tighten. I am a diplomat, Adrian. My duty is to my people first. And what do you want? Not as a diplomat, not as a Solari, but as Thérèse. She was quiet for a long moment, her fingers tracing patterns on his chest. I want to know what it feels like to wake up beside someone who cares for me. I want to understand why humans sing about love as if it were a force of nature. I want. She looked up at him, vulnerability naked in her golden eyes. I want to choose my own path. Then choose, he said simply. Before she could respond, the lab's main lights flickered back to life, harsh and sudden after the intimate dimness. They stepped apart instinctively, but not quickly enough. The door hissed open, revealing two figures in Silari robes. Adrian recognized them as members of Thérèse's delegation, her subordinates and, more importantly, her watchers. Commander, the taller one said, his voice carrying clear disapproval. We have been searching for you. The repairs are complete. Thérèse smoothed her robes with hands that trembled slightly. Thank you, Keleth. I was conducting research. Indeed, Keleth's gaze moved between them, noting their proximity, the flush in Thérèse's cheeks, the way Adrian's hair was disheveled. What manner of research requires such close proximity to the human? Cultural anthropology, Thérèse said coolly, but Adrian could hear the tension beneath her composure. Dr. Vale was demonstrating human comfort behaviors during crisis situations. How thorough. The other Silari, a female with silver-streaked hair, stepped forward. Commander, the Council has requested an immediate report on your progress. They are concerned about the amount of time you have been spending with the humans. Adrian saw something flicker across Thérèse's face. Fear, defiance, resignation. Of course. I will prepare my report immediately. We will escort you, Keleth said, and it was clearly not a request. As they moved toward the door, Thérèse turned back to Adrian. In that brief glance, he saw everything she couldn't say. Apology, longing, and something that might have been love. "Dr. Vale," she said formally. "Thank you for your assistance during the emergency." "Commander," he replied, matching her formal tone while his heart broke. "It was my pleasure." After they left, Adrian stood alone in the lab, surrounded by the lingering warmth of her presence and the devastating certainty that everything had changed. The taste of her lips still lingered on his, and he knew that no matter what happened, next he would carry the memory of this moment, of her choosing him even if only briefly for the rest of his life. But as he began to clean up their scattered research materials, he noticed something that made his pulse quicken. On Therea's workstation, partially hidden beneath a datapad, was a single crimson hair. She had left it deliberately, he realized. A message, a promise, a reminder that what had passed between them was real. Whatever came next, they would face it together. 3 days passed without word from Thea. Adrian threw himself into his work, analyzing linguistic patterns and cultural exchanges, but his mind kept drifting to her, the way she had felt in his arms, the wonder in her voice when she spoke, of desire, the fear in her eyes when her people had found them. On the 4th day she came to him. Adrian was alone in the observation lounge, watching stars wheel past the Harmony's viewports, when he heard the soft whisper of robes behind him. He turned to find Thea standing in the doorway, but she looked different, older somehow, as if the weight of worlds rested on her shoulders. Adrian. His name was a whisper on her lips. Thea. He rose from his chair, drinking in the sight of her. "Are you all right? I haven't seen you since I defied everything I was raised to believe." She stepped into the lounge, and he noticed she moved differently. Less fluid grace, more careful control. "Since I chose desire over duty." "What happened? What did your people say?" She was quiet for a long moment, standing before the vast viewport, with stars reflected in her golden eyes. "They know, Adrian. About us, about what passed between us in the lab." His heart clenched. "How?" Keleth suspected, and Sayalari have ways of confirming such things. Medical scans, neural pattern analysis. When one of my people experiences physical contact for the first time, it leaves marks that cannot be hidden. "I'm sorry," he said, stepping closer despite the danger. "I never meant to put you at risk." "Don't." She turned to face him, and he saw fire in her golden gaze. "Don't apologize for showing me what it means to be alive. What will happen now?" Thea moved to stand before him, close enough that he could smell the exotic scent of her skin, something like starflowers and distant rain. "The Council has given me a choice. Return to Solari space immediately and undergo purification rituals to remove the contamination of human contact, or face exile from my people forever." The words hit Adrian like a physical blow. "Thea, no. You can't give up your entire life, your career, your family. Can't I?" She reached up, her fingers tracing the line of his jaw with a reverence that made his breath catch. "What life was I living before you, Adrian? I was a perfect diplomat, a flawless representative of my people's ideals. I was also hollow inside, going through the motions of existence without ever truly living. But your people, your world, my world is here." Her hands framed his face, her touch electric. "With you. I realized something in that containment chamber, when I thought we might die together. I would rather have one moment of real connection with you than a lifetime of empty perfection among my own kind." Adrian's hands found her waist, drawing her closer. "Are you sure this is forever, Thea? Once you choose, there's no going back." "I've already chosen," she whispered, rising on her toes to brush her lips against his. "I chose the moment I first touched you. Everything since then has just been finding the courage to admit it." Their kiss was desperate, tinged with the knowledge of what it would cost her. Adrian held her as if she might disappear, as if the universe might tear her away from him at any moment. "I love you," he said against her lips, the words spilling out before he could stop them. "I know it's too soon. I know we're from different worlds, but I love you too. She interrupted, smiling through tears he didn't know she could shed. Is that what this feeling is? This certainty that I would rather face the unknown with you than the familiar without you? Yes, he breathed, wondering at the miracle of it. Two beings from different stars, finding each other across the vast emptiness of space. Then I have one more thing to tell you. Therea's smile grew mysterious. I may have exaggerated my situation slightly. What do you mean? When I told the council about us, about what I had discovered through our contact, I framed it as essential research. I submitted a formal proposal titled Comprehensive Study of Human Intimacy and Its Applications to Interspecies Relations. Adrian stared at her. You didn't. I did. And after much deliberation, and probably some influence from the progressive faction who believe Salari isolationism is outdated, they approved it. Her grin was positively wicked. Provided, of course, that I conduct this research when they're firsthand. Therea, you brilliant, impossible woman. Adrian spun her around, both of them laughing. How long do we have for this research? The council was quite thorough in their specifications. They want a complete understanding of human pair bonding behaviors, emotional intimacy, and long-term relationship dynamics. She pressed closer, her voice dropping to a sultry whisper. I estimate it will take at least 50 years to gather sufficient data. Only 50? Adrian nuzzled her neck, delighting in the way she shivered at the contact. I think you're underestimating the complexity of the subject. Perhaps you're right, she murmured, her hands sliding up his chest. We may need to extend the study period indefinitely. For the good of interspecies relations, of course. As the Harmony continued its journey through the cosmos, two hearts that had found each other across the impossible distances between worlds beat in perfect synchronization. Outside the viewport, stars blazed in their ancient patterns, witnesses to another small miracle in the vast tapestry of existence. Proof that love, like light, could travel any distance to find its destination. In the end, Therea had chosen her path not by abandoning her duty, but by redefining it. And Adrian had learned that sometimes the most profound discoveries came not from studying the unknown, but from opening your heart to it. Their research, as it turned out, would last far longer than 50 years. But neither of them would ever consider it work. It was pure joy, pure connection, pure love given form. And in the quiet moments between stars, when they held each other close and marveled at the improbability of their union, they knew they had found something rarer than any element in the periodic table. They had found home in each other's arms. The end